This episode is brought to you by the shows of the You Run Podcast Network, all available at yourunpodcast.com. Whether it's true crime or film reviews, even TV series deep dives, the You Run Podcast Network has you covered. So go and check out yourunpodcast.com today. I got in trouble with Lisa this week. So it's my son's birthday this week, and earlier, we were waiting for Lisa's mum to arrive. And Lisa went, "Look, can you just give my mum a call?" Apparently shouting Beetlejuice 3 times really loud was not the correct response. And anyone who thinks that's a gag, that is a true story, and I'm in the doghouse tonight.
You want to die tonight?
The dad jokes you tell sets the scene. I hang on every word lost in the screen. Your passion for fear is contagious enough. You make me believe in Mark's overblown roundups. You run podcasts for a movie review, unveiling facts and playing games too. Your words paint pictures of darkness and dread, leaving me grinning long after I fled.
Hello and welcome to the You Run Podcast Horror Movie Review. My name is Scott.
My name is Mark.
And we are an interactive horror movie review show where you pick the movies you want us to review. Over on Instagram, we're at You Run Podcast. While you're there, give Mark a follow. He's at Reviews from the Crypt and at VHS from the Crypt. You can get in touch with the show by sending us an email, yourunpodcast@gmail.com, or you can record us an audio voicemail by doing that on Instagram or X in the DM section. Just hold the microphone button down and we'll receive your message. We've received quite a few messages this week, same as last week. When we get to messages, they're going to break you this week, break you.
What have I done? What have I done now?
You haven't. We'll get there shortly. Reviews are super important for the show. So important, in fact, that we're running a giveaway. So from now until Christmas, you need to leave us a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts or a 5-star review on Spotify. Screenshot that and DM it to us on one of the social medias, and you'll be entered into the draw. If you've already reviewed us, which I know lots of you have, you can leave a comment on Spotify, and every comment you leave from now until the end of the year is one entry into the draw. So if you comment on every episode between now and Christmas, that'll be 16 entries for you to win three pieces of merchandise from our store.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a good competition to run. We have 3 messages this week. I'm going to start here.
Hey lads, it's your buddy Newman from Movies for Days. Just wanted to respond to your I Know What You Did Last Summer episode because you liked the cast so much. I wanted to shout out another great Ryan Phillippe movie y'all should check out, The Way of the Gun. It's basically a spiritual successor to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. It features Benicio del Toro, Juliette Lewis, and James Caan. And it's fantastic. And Johnny Galecki, before doing The Big Bang Theory, but after doing Roseanne, was in this great flick called Suicide Kings, where him and a bunch of his rich buddies kidnap Christopher Walken, who is a retired mobster, because they need his help dissolving a kidnapping situation that has been visited upon them. Dennis Leary is his top enforcer. It's awesome. Suicide Kings. And if you've both seen these movies already, fuck it, watch them again. They rock. All right. Love you really. Take care. Bye.
I personally have seen neither of those movies, but the cast list for both of them sound incredible. But westerns aren't my thing. I'm not going to go for the Ryan Phillippe western, I don't think.
Suicide Kings with the kidnapped Christopher Walken I have seen, and honestly, it is... just picture Christopher Walken being kidnapped, being Christopher Walken. That's exactly what you get. It's so
I'm down
good.
for that one.
Yeah, really, really good movie. We have another message.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Alex. Real quick, I wanted to correct myself on the Ryan Phillippe movie. I think I called it Antivirus. It's called Antitrust. Antitrust. But anyways, I wanted to call in and formally request a movie. One of my favorites. It's definitely in my top 10. But The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Yes. I love
Yes.
The Autopsy of Jane Doe. That is an incredible movie.
I was just about to say, shall we vote on it? But we both nodded and said yes at the same time. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you're also forgiven for calling that movie antiviral or antitrust. I don't know. Whatever you said the first time that was wrong, that's what I called it in the episode as well. So it's
Yeah.
all good.
And yeah, like you can do that here. Alex, you've got that request. That will be at some point in October or November. Me and Mark will squeeze that episode in. So if you want a movie to be covered on this show, all you need to do is leave us a voicemail. We got one more voicemail. Are you sat comfortably?
I am now.
Okay.
Hi guys, just listening to some of your old episodes. I'm just listening to Urban Legend on the back of I Know What You Did Last Summer, and I'm wondering, are you still offering sexual advice? If so, please help, because since listening to your podcast, I've discovered I can only masturbate while looking at videos with no sound and simultaneously listening to your show. It's the only way I can climax. Please help me solve this issue.
Wow. Okay, that's new. That's new. No judgment. No judgment. You're into what you're into.
It's not the first person, though. Do you remember we had a female listener early in the show when you first joined who also confessed to masturbating to us while listening to the show?
That is wild, man. That is wild. That is wild. I noticed he didn't leave his name, even though I instantly recognized who it was. And I'm just now wondering whether I should follow, unfollow, and block that account.
No. Like
I wouldn't do that.
As far as I'm concerned, like if you're masturbating to the show, like
don't stop me, don't stop me, don't stop me. Hey, hey, hey! Don't stop me, don't stop me. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
They don't stop coming and they don't stop coming and they don't stop coming.
The thing is, my accent doesn't translate well at the best of times, let alone in a romantic situation.
The thing is, if we get one more listener that does that, we are almost at a point where we can offer the You Run podcast masturbation support line.
I'm not taking those calls.
So if you too masturbate to the You Run podcast, please call in and let us know, and we won't judge you at all.
Wanker, mate, if anyone is.
Honestly,
I don't get it. I don't get. I know you want to move on from this very quickly, but I'm just in a state of shock right now and understanding of where this is coming from and why there is a necessary need to do this.
It's definitely not to your roundups because no one can last that long.
There's a challenge for you if you are listening, you masturbators.
Save your masturbation to Mark's roundup and see if you finish before he does. And let us know. Send us a voicemail. If you're new to the show, hello, welcome. We give you a synopsis of the movie. We then go into deep dive kind of into what we liked and didn't like. We do that in no particular order and we go all over the place. We have some interactive features, one of which being cover notes today. We give you some facts, then we give you roundups and scores, and we let you get on with your day. I'm still stuck on the masturbation. I don't know if we've helped him. Like Dave, I just think you should do it. Just carry on. Like I don't care. It makes no difference to me.
Yeah, I mean, are we not helping him anyway by releasing more episodes? Is that not, not our contribution to him?
Yeah, I mean, like if you need to do it more than once a day, our YouTube is available.
Oh no, that goes a step too far because then he's got the visuals, and I don't know how comfortable I feel with that. It's one thing having my voice, even though it's very much nowhere near the quality of Stevie Wonder or even Morgan Freeman. Having the YouTube video alongside it, that's a cause for concern, I think.
Well, while we're speaking about YouTube...
Hey guys, please be sure to leave us a review on Apple or Spotify and subscribe to the damn YouTube. While you are there, hit the notification bell as I have some solo episodes coming up. They will be top 10 countdowns and better than anything these clowns have put out before. Peace out, bitches.
Cancel Scott. He's using AI. He's using AI.
Gladys has some videos coming on YouTube. She's doing top 10 countdowns. They are movies selected by me. I have written the dialogue for Gladys. It's not completely AI generated, but they're videos that I'm not on. which means I can create these videos while I'm sat in my pants in the evening, and I don't need to come and sit and record. So, hey, it's what you get.
Hey, judging by the way this episode's going, maybe releasing videos of you in your pants might be the way to go.
Maybe OnlyFans coming soon. Today it's a new release, and we're letting you know our thoughts on letting the juice loose again. Lydia is back, Delia is back, Beetlejuice is back. They gave Jeffrey Jones what he deserved in real life for being a dirty pedo. They introduced some wonderful new characters like Astrid, Wolf Jackson, and Bob, all while taking us on a movie with 75 different subplots through the afterlife and the real world in a ploy to activate our nostalgia glands. And I'm going to say it from the off, man, they did. Like, they got me within the first 2 minutes. I'm like, commit the daily manhunt. I was fully in.
Considering your hatred for the trailer as well, I'm surprised to see you go down that route.
Yeah, it just, there was something about like the initial opening, and I don't know, there was something about it that just really grabbed me. And if I'm honest, the standout star for this, the thing that dragged me in the most, is Catherine O'Hara.
Yeah, and that was one of the big selling points in my notes, was how Michael Keaton got such a big amount of screen time this time around, which rightly so. He was the biggest draw for the first movie, even though he had like 14 minutes of screen time. Him getting more of a presence here was warranted. But
he had 16 minutes in this.
Yeah, but that's like what, 2 minutes more than the first movie?
2 minutes more than the first.
It's a noticeable moment. But one thing that really stood out to me was Catherine O'Hara's presence. Like, she was amazing, like absolutely amazing. Most of the comedic value that I found, and the one that got the most laughs from me, was surrounding her character. And I think they'd probably seen her in Schitt's Creek again and getting a resurgence in her career, and was like, yeah, we need her to be the forefront of this movie. And she was, and she nailed it. And I am so glad she was back for this.
Yeah, I really, really, really enjoyed her being back in this. Also, I was surprised at how good Jenna Ortega was in this. She is now a one-trick pony, though. She plays Wednesday and everything.
You see, you say that, and you thought she was really good. I thought she was serviceable, but I didn't. Granted, I think the thing is, knowing that she was cast in this movie, I was expecting her to bring something. And I'm not saying she didn't bring something. She just didn't bring enough. In my opinion, I just don't feel like her presence in this movie warranted her casting. I feel like the role that she played could have been played by anybody, because it weren't pivotal enough to the story to warrant a Jenna Ortega role. She's great, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying she's not, and she was fantastic in this movie for what she did, but it weren't. Nothing about her performance here made me walk away and be like, oh, Jenna Ortega was fantastic in that movie. No, she was just Jenna Ortega in the brief scenes that she was in. And I wanted more from her in that. But at the same time, I didn't, because I wanted the original cast more than I wanted to see her. So every time we detracted from the story and got scenes where it was her doing her thing, I was like, this isn't good for me. Let's just go back to Winona Ryder and Catherine O'Hara and Michael Keaton.
Yeah,
I don't need this.
Let's talk about the story. So they kill off the dad, and that's because the real life actor Jeffrey Jones is in prison for child porn offences, and he's a terribly horrible man and deserves to rot there.
They do. I do think they did a good job of handling that as well, without excluding him completely. And in that stop motion animation segment where he died was really cool.
Yeah.
And then also still including his character, but not using him as an actor in the afterlife, was a very good way of keeping it all inclusive without actually representing him as a person. And I think that was pivotal to the story to include that, because had they just excluded him altogether, I don't think this story would have made a whole lot of sense.
No, it really wouldn't. And I think the way they done it, and they gave him a death in the plane crash, and it's like, oh, and he died in the crash? No, he was in the sea for 3 days, so he drowned. No, he got his head bitten off by a shark. And it's like, every time you think that's what killed him, they upped the ante. It's like Tim Burton was just like, how many ways can we kill a paedophile? And he just rattled them all off and went, let's do all of them. And I was kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah, well done. I appreciate the fact that you've gone to those lengths to kill him off.
Yeah, definitely.
Practical effects on his shark bodysuit are also incredible.
I think the practical effects across the board in this movie are fantastic, and that's one thing that was really pivotal to me with this sequel, was that they were gonna keep the aesthetics of the first film alive in this sequel. If they'd have gone with a new age technology and had everything CGI and a bigger budget and a grander scale, it would have really compromised the world that they'd built in the first movie, and I would have struggled to adjust to the change. And I'm so grateful that they decided to keep the original aesthetics of the first film with the set design, the makeup effects. There's a few moments of really, really wonky CGI. When the bride
Yeah.
staples herself back together, it looks
Yes.
fucking shocking. Like really, really shocking. And then the demise of Beetlejuice at the end when he explodes into all those different pieces and you see his face float down to the floor. I was like, oh, that's terrible. But in a way, as bad as it is, it's as bad as the CGI from the first film. So I don't know whether it was purposeful or not. I don't know, but I did definitely notice it, and it did stand out to me in a great deal. And I was like, you could have probably done that a lot better and a lot more impactful had you used stop motion animation to show her stapling herself back together, because it would have still looked cheap and it would have still looked raw, but it would have suited the aesthetics of the set a lot more than what you're representing with this scene on screen as it is.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the inclusion of that CGI didn't damage it, but there was times where I was like, "Oh, why?
Yeah.
Why?"
Yeah.
Like you've showcased what you can do, and then you've done that. And there's some facts around, especially Beetlejuice exploding. There's some facts around that tie in
It just
quite
looked like a
nicely.
shortcut to me when I saw it. It was like, oh, you've taken a shortcut there because it's probably easier and quicker to do that in post. But it didn't translate very well to me. It never took me out of the movie. It never took me out of the scene particularly. But when you're comparing it to all the great practical effects going on around you, when you do transition into those scenes where they are heavily CGI, you notice them a lot more than what you would if you were watching a movie like Sharknado or something like that, where it is all glorified CGI. So
Yeah,
it was a poor judgment call, I think, to do that in those scenes. But again, it didn't particularly bother me. It's only because it's our job on the show to criticize certain elements, and those are one of the elements that I feel need criticizing.
the thing that I think needs criticizing is, and I said it in my opening gambit, is the amount of subplots in this. Like this
Yeah.
is riddled with subplots. So you've got the main family go back to the funeral of the dad. Lydia's seeing Beetlejuice. That's one plot. Then you've got Beetlejuice in the afterlife who's pining after Lydia. That's another plot. You've then got Jenna Ortega's character who meets a boy and she doesn't want to be in the town, and then she likes the boy and she wants to be in the town. You've got
Her
Beetlejuice's
dead
wife
dad.
who's her dead dad. You've got Beetlejuice's wife who's ex-wife who's risen from the grave, who now is after Beetlejuice. You've got Willem Dafoe as the detective who's trying to track it all down and hunt it all. And then you've got Bob. And
Yep.
Bob, I will take a movie just watching Bob. And I'm going to say it now, justice for Bob, you bastards.
I mean, the thing is, I didn't particularly warm to Bob the same way you did, especially given your passion for the character. But one thing that did stand out to me more than anything is the pacing and is the excessive amounts of subplots, which is weird because you spend the first 50 minutes, possibly even 60 minutes, introducing all these story arcs, building upon the time period from the first movie to the second movie and filling in all the gaps, introducing new characters such as Winona Ryder's fiance.
Oh man, what a douchebag he is.
Biggest dick in the world, and all this time you spend in the first hour setting all of this stuff up. And granted, I'm not going to say that any of it's not interesting. Like, I was really invested in it all. I thought it was all really gripping stuff, and it all suited the world very, very well. And I was on board for the ride. But my issue lies with these developments is the slow burning pace we get throughout the first hour, that they get to a point in the final act where it's like, shit, we need to tie all this together. And they do. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they don't tie it all together very well, because they do. Everything makes logical sense and everything comes together very, very nicely by the time we get to the closing act. But when we get to the closing act, everything's rushed.
Yeah.
It just feels like everything's like, shit, we need to go, 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 go. He comes there and they come there and they come there because of this. And then, oh, yeah, that character we introduced here is now irrelevant here. Yeah, it all makes logistical sense and it all works very well on paper as a narrative, but you spent too much time within the first hour focusing on developing these subplots that it all feels rushed by the time we get to the final climax. And that was one of the biggest disappointments for me. And that wasn't because it wasn't good enough. It was just rushed at the end. And I would take a 2-hour cut of this movie where we spend an hour developing the stuff that we got, which was perfectly paced and it was all very well and all very enjoyable. But then give me that additional 25, 30 minutes for the second half of the movie that you massively condensed to tie everything together. Because had you expanded it all and give us the extra hour at the end to bring it all together more neatly and more coherently, I would have enjoyed this movie a lot more. But for me, it just felt right. We need to get to the finish line now. Let's just bring everybody together for a reason.
Yeah, I think the other way to do this is like the plot of Lydia and Beetlejuice is all you need. Lydia, Beetlejuice, have the plot with the daughter, lose the plot with the ex-wife, because the only reason that's there is to give us the backstory of how Beetlejuice became Beetlejuice. And
also because he was needed to get married again to Lydia. Again, like I'm justifying it because it is purposeful and it all makes sense. He needs to get married again to vanquish her and get her out of his life because then he's married again. But I think my biggest issue with all of this lies with Jenna Ortega. Because had you have just cast a nobody as Lydia Dietz's daughter, we wouldn't have had to spend so much time developing her character at the beginning. You could have had all of the story still make sense, but without the bloat that we got from it because it's Jenna Ortega, so she needs more screen time, you know?
Yeah,
And I think that's the issue.
No, what we needed was
Bob.
more Bob.
I don't get it. I don't get more Bob. He doesn't do anything.
Like Beetlejuice in that, like he's working effectively for the civil service in the undead realm now. He's a manager running a call center. All of those shrunken head characters are just brilliant. Like I love the fact that they're all actual puppets. I love the fact that it was a person in the suit and then they controlled the head and the face and the eyes from a controller stood behind him. Like all of that to me was so much like the original. And like even the way like Bob turns his head but he can't quite turn it properly, it's just so reminiscent of that final scene. And Bob is the most loyal, kind, nice guy, and he gets nothing but shit on from the start of the movie when Beetlejuice is picking on him to where the detective comes and drags him in and screams and shouts at him to when he gets massacred by the evil woman.
I do like the effects used for the soul sucking when she kills them each time, and she basically compresses them like a
Danny
DeVito's bag.
That's
really good.
Danny DeVito's death was amazing, and his skin suit looked so much like Danny DeVito at the end.
Yes, it was great to see him in there as well.
Yeah, because like I'm sure, like me, like Danny DeVito, we grew up with Danny DeVito. Like he is instantly recognizable, and they do this whole thing where he's got the back to the camera for I don't know, probably a minute.
I knew
and
it
a
was
half.
him straight away.
The second I saw him, I went, "Oh, Danny DeVito's in this," and he's like, well, "How do you know it's Danny DeVito?" I was like, "It's Danny DeVito," and then he turned around.
How is
like,
it not Danny DeVito?
Yeah, it's zombie Danny DeVito. Like he was cool. I think all of the original cast in this were cool. I think Lydia's story was a bit weak, where she's now.
And I think I'll be honest with you. I think Winona Ryder's performance was very weak as well. I didn't think she was exceptional in this. And you know what's the most difficult thing about this is giving her resurgence recently in Stranger Things. I've seen what she can do in that show. She's fucking fantastic in Stranger Things, and she's one of the biggest draws for me. I know people love the kids and all the rest of it and Hopper, but Winona Ryder was born to play that character in Stranger Things. So I've seen how great she can be, and I know how important the original Beetlejuice movie is to her. So I was expecting her to elevate her performance to a level where she was going to be like, this is my calling to come back and do this again. And and revisit it and give it everything I've got.
But I don't
She
know if
just
that's
felt wooden quite a
is
lot.
that a Tim Burton direction though? Because in the original, she plays exactly the same level of acting ability in this as she does in the original. Is that a director note? I want you to play this as awkward and weird as you did in the original, even though you're 30 years older and you will have matured as a person. Because I want to shift this story to Astrid and the Ghost Kid, and I want Beetlejuice to be the main focal point. Was it Tim Burton that made that happen?
Possibly, yeah, for a big percentage of it, but there is a lot of scenes within this movie that required big emotional performances from Winona Ryder, especially the stuff within the underworld where it's not necessarily a personality trait to behave in a certain way. It's a do or die kind of situation, and for me, her performance and it just didn't quite live up to what I expected from her, and especially considering I know what she can do now as a
What
character actor, it just didn't quite get me as much as I wanted it to.
what did you think of the additional lore they added in with the underworld? So now you've got the train that can take you to like the far beyond, and it takes you to like I think there was internal damnation and things like that. So it shows that like this underworld waiting room area is just while you're waiting for everything to be stamped and agreed, so you can go get on the soul train and go to heaven or hell or somewhere else. Did you like that, or were you not on board
I
for that?
did. I did really, really like it. I love the lore building and the development of something we got a very small percentage of in the first film. I just don't think that this movie handled it particularly well. And I think that comes down to the choice of musical cues throughout this. I found the musical cues very underwhelming.
The
You
sing
know,
song in the Soul Train was like, "What are you doing? Like,
yeah,
I don't need this whole like full on The Greatest Showman musical number here. I just need her to be being dragged down to the train and someone to come and save her. I don't need any of this. Like, it's the Soul
yeah,
Train."
I thought the theatrics in this was just shit, to be honest with you. And I think, given how impactful the first movie's musical cues were, the choices made for the songs throughout this film were just so underwhelming. The final song at the end, where they're doing the whole wedding song, didn't get it, didn't resonate with me, didn't appeal to me in any way. And I think there is a million and one other pop culture songs that you could have chosen that would have worked so much better within that scene. The
Yeah,
whole Brian Adams song that Beetlejuice was singing, and he wasn't even singing it in his voice, it was just a dub over. That was just pathetic, in my opinion. And another gripe that I really had with the character of Beetlejuice and the direction they chose to take him in within this movie was when he kept choosing different languages. When he was doing the backstory of the bride and it was all done in French with a backstory of the subtitles, I just didn't get it. I just didn't see why it was necessary. And then again in the closing act, when he went all Mexican and did the whole Mexican thing, it just felt to me like there was something missing, that something was edited from that section that led up to that scene at the end where he was doing the whole Mexican bull thing with the sandworm. Like, I get the Mexican bull thing with the sandworm. Yeah, that's great. It leads him to get to
but
there. But then
what was he
it
doing
just
it?
felt like something was missing from that scene.
Yeah, and I think what was missing from Beetlejuice was behaviour like
Not so fast, brown boy. We're gonna have some laughs.
that sort of
I think they just tried to make him too relatable.
Yeah, they tried to make him more of a goody, and I will give them credit where it is due. He is still very politically incorrect in this, and I saw an interview with Tim Burton yesterday where Tim Burton said when they wrote the script for Beetlejuice, they gave it to Michael Keaton, and it was still the same as it was in the original. Michael Keaton went, "Yeah, I'm gonna do what I want," and Tim Burton went, "Okay, fine." So all of it's still ad-libbed, and he said a lot of inappropriate things, and there was producers and people going, "You need to cut that out," and it was Tim Burton who dug his heels in and went, "No, he's a dead character, been dead for over 200 years. He's not going to have evolved. He's not going to have become woke. So we're going to leave him inappropriate and we're going to take any backlash we get from it." And I kind of went, "Do you know what? I applaud you for that." Because there are times in here where he's like, "Hey, babe," like, and then trying to touch Winona Ryder's ass. I'm like, "Whoa, okay."
But there wasn't enough of it in
No,
comparison to the first film, in my opinion. I thought it was a very tame version of his character, and it was done to try and make people warm to him a little bit more. But he's always been the antagonist. He's always been the one that people are not supposed to root for. But by the time we got to the end, I kind of wanted him to marry Winona Ryder. I wanted them to get together, and I shouldn't be feeling that about the character of Beetlejuice.
No, and I think this, like I said it when I done my news bit on this a couple of months ago, that I said that they're going to go down very much the animated series path where Lydia and Beetlejuice are going to work together for a common goal. And that's exactly what they've done. And I don't mind that. But in the animated series, Beetlejuice was still a nefarious bad guy. And like he would do things deliberately to sabotage Lydia that would just so happen to help her. He was never intentionally trying to help her. And in this, he does go all out to help her in the agreement that she'll then marry him.
Which again makes sense because he's only thinking about his own end goal, which is because the bride's chasing him and he needs to marry Lydia. But like, it's just done in a way that doesn't quite. It feels very underhanded in how he's doing it. It doesn't feel like they should have just taken it in a lot more darker route. And I think that's my biggest issue with the movie overall is it's not dark enough. It's very timid. It's very toned down in comparison to what the first film is. I mean, the first film is a timid movie, but it's got that perfect balance where a slight different change of tone in the line delivery would take the movie in an entirely different direction. You don't have that here with this second sequel. It's just a case of he is his character. He is on her side. He is helping her. Let's all warm to Beetlejuice. Let's all show how much we appreciate this character. But you don't get that
Yeah,
from the first film, but you love him because
no.
of that reason.
Yeah, and in the first one, like he does things like
Wait a
this
I don't know what her problem is.
and this.
Nice fucking model!
Best line in that movie.
But we don't get any of that. And I understand why we don't get it, but I kind of wanted that. One thing they replaced it with that I was appreciative for was all the gore. The bit where they do the therapy session and is Winona Ryder's really annoying boyfriend basically goes, look, this is a trauma. We're going to work through this together. I understand Beetlejuice is like a manifestation of all your things. So Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. And they end up sat in the therapy chairs like that when
Yeah.
Beetlejuice goes, look, we're all going to spill her guts and we're going to talk about everything. We're just going to get it all out. And then he goes, I'll go first, and slits himself from like his chest to his stomach and his guts go everywhere. Like that, I was like, brilliant. Great. Love that.
Fantastic. And again, you can't knock the practical effects in this movie. The makeup as well of the people that are dead within the waiting room and stuff look as great as they did in the first movie, which will make this movie just as timeless as that one in terms of its effects. But the story just don't live up to it, man. It just doesn't qualify enough for me. And this is one of my biggest conundrums, and that's one thing that I wanted to present to you tonight was, is this movie justified and is it worth the wait? And how does it affect your perceptions of the first film? Especially after seeing it, where do you sit within the I'd rather have not have seen this kind of category?
No, I'm glad I saw it. It doesn't affect my enjoyment of the first one. No sequel or reboot will ever do that for any movie. There are bits in here that I truly love. Like I truly like they are the best things ever. Like Catherine O'Hara with her art display where she's become this famous artist after what happened, and like where she's doing like they're grieving and she's like, we need to capture all of this, and she's in her like study and she's doing like primal screams because she's like, I need to get the right shot for like pure visceral heartbreak emotion. And then like she orders the snakes and the snakes bite her, and her in the afterlife. Everything in this movie Catherine O'Hara does is perfection.
Perfect. Yeah.
Everything else around it is lacking a little bit. I don't think Beetlejuice looks right. I'm not sold on Jenna Ortega. Like, I would rather they had set this entire thing in the afterlife following Beetlejuice with him stalking Lydia and then him finding a loophole to get out and kidnapping Lydia, and then the story unfolding that way as opposed to what we got. Like the ghost boy. Let's talk about the ghost boy. When did you peg him as a ghost?
To be honest, it wasn't until the woman come around and said, "Oh yeah, the murder house." I was like, "Oh shit, yeah, I know where this is going." But
See,
again,
I
like
pegged it. I got it at the handbook for the recently deceased in his bedroom. I was like, oh, well, you're
And
dead.
I should have picked up on that. Yeah, and I should have picked up on that straight away, and I didn't. But that is a key point where I should have been like, oh yeah, of course. But again, like I didn't dislike that story arc at all. Like I thought it played really, really well, and it made perfect sense to tie in the fact that that's how Lydia ends up in the afterlife, and that's how her and Beetlejuice team up in order to save Jenna Ortega's character. Everything works well on paper in terms of the story. I just don't think it was executed well enough on screen,
No.
in my
Uh,
opinion. Like, I don't
and
have any issues with the plot and the way that this picked up from the first movie and how it brought the characters together going forward for the sequel. Like, all of it is fantastic on paper and it does make for a great sequel. There's just elements of it that are so poorly executed that I can't see past it when I'm watching this movie. I watched it again today for the second time this week, and I was just sat there and I was like, why? This is dark. Like, this is a really, really dark element, and you can translate it just as dark as you did in the first movie and still make it comedic. But you've gone for such a light-hearted tone where you don't need to, that audiences aren't going to warm to it as much as they did with the first movie. This isn't going to hold the same cult classic status as that first movie did, without a shadow of
no,
a doubt, in my opinion.
I think my biggest plot issue is Wolf Jackson, so Willem Dafoe's character, where he plays the dead. He's a dead actor who played cop parts, and now he's a cop in the afterlife. Like him trying to find out who's sucking the souls out of people and working out his Beetlejuice, and then that big climax where he calls in like I don't know the undead SWAT team. Like all of that, I was like you could remove that from the movie and it doesn't affect the plot in any way, shape, or form. He adds nothing to it. He's great as that character, but that whole subplot, if you take it out, the movie still flows exactly as it did.
Yeah, it does. And but again, like I liked his addition, and I liked Monica Bellucci's character as the bride, but she gets a very brief introduction at the beginning, and then we don't get anything else from her up until the end, barring a couple of 2-second scenes. Willem Dafoe's character, he's got a great purpose, he's got a great mission, and he's relevant to the story. But again, we don't get anything with him up until the closing act. And I think the biggest problem with it is the fact that they cast such star-studded people to play these roles that they sort of project more relevance than they necessarily need to, and they spent so much time developing them at the beginning in the first opening act or 2 acts that by the time we get to the end, you just feel unfulfilled by what they've brought to the table. And I think had you taken somebody, I think the 3 actors that I would replace in this is Jenna Ortega, Willem Dafoe, and Monica Bellucci's character as the bride.
Yeah.
I think all 3 of those, had you have cast somebody lesser known, more irrelevant, and introduced them as a sketch, like an SNL sketch at the beginning, and then had them come back in at the end, that would have felt more purposeful, and then you could have spent more time concentrating on Catherine O'Hara, Lydia Deetz, Beetlejuice, and that would have made everything sort of feel more naturally flowing. But when you introduce such A-listers as Willem Dafoe in bit parts, and then don't quite deliver on his story arc, and it feels unfulfilled by the time we get to the end, you just feel like, well, hang on a minute, like you've made such a big song and dance about Willem Dafoe being in this movie by showcasing him so much at the beginning of the film. Where's his arc conclusion? Where we've got to the end now, but we haven't seen anything from him. He's got literally 15 seconds worth of screen time in the roundup, and it doesn't make any sense to me why you'd spend so much time focusing on him at the beginning.
And he's got that one bit where he interviews Beetlejuice where he kind of suspects something's going on. Like, we get the scene where Willem Dafoe tears into Bob, and Bob just cowers and shivers. Like, I wanted that scene, but put Beetlejuice there where Beetlejuice is going to bite back and argue. And, like, I wanted that conflict. I didn't want, like, poor old Bob.
The whole Joker and Gordon, Detective Gordon kind of Batman thing going on.
Like, why didn't that happen? Like, I think there was some bad choices in this.
Yeah,
I kind of don't have anything else to say about it. Do you?
The sandworms, big yes on the sandworms. love the fact that they went back to the original stop motion animation on that. And again, I've said already that's one of the biggest selling points for me when watching Beetlejuice 2 is regardless of all this bloat and stupid decisions that were made throughout, I think the aesthetics for me were very welcoming. I don't think I would struggle too much to watch Beetlejuice 1 and Beetlejuice 2 back to back and
No.
feel too disjointed in regards of terms of how distant they were in terms of release. I think that's one thing that they executed very well for me was the practical effects and makeup effects and keeping things tonally the same from the first movie to the second movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, I haven't got anything else to say.
Okay. Shall we take a break then?
Yeah.
Yeah. When you finish this episode, head over to yourunpodcast.com and check out some of our other network members. There's Voices from the Mausoleum, your home for horror on YouTube. Everything from found footage to remakes to conspiracy theories. They even have a horror coffee morning. This is the place for you, so check out Voices from the Mausoleum. Also available on the You Run Podcast Network, the horror-friendly podcast hosted by Katie and Chantel. This hilarious horror movie review show covers horror movies from the past, the present, and even the future when they cover movies that are only at film festivals. This is a show you must check out. These and many other shows all available at yourunpodcast.com, so head to our website today. So head over to yourunpodcast.com, check out both Voices from the Mausoleum and the Horror Friendly Podcast and all of the other shows we've got there and our merchandise shop. Even if you don't buy anything, you can have a look through at what 3 items you'd want when you enter our competition by leaving a comment on Spotify or a 5-star review. If you've forgotten already, rewind and listen to the bit at the beginning where I explained it, because I'm not going to do it again. And if anyone thinks I'm sounding really husky, I'm sure there's a certain listener who's enjoying this. I am suffering with a cold, so I apologise if I'm a bit gruff.
It's man flu season, and Scott just welcomes it with open arms every year.
I do. This is the downside of having multiple children, something that you will suffer from very shortly.
Yes, I'm sure I will.
You will. We put out a cover note this week, and the reason I put out a cover note is because the cover note for Beetlejuice is "The Ghost with the Most is Back," and quite honestly, Tim Burton, that's fucking terrible. You can do better than that.
Yeah, that
like,
is poor.
I saw it. I was like, really? Like, that's like, of all the catchphrases you've got in Beetlejuice, you went with that?
I don't think Tim Burton's responsible for the marketing of this movie, though. I don't think that we can put the blame on him. I think that's some sort of producer's issue.
Yeah. Well, anyway, our listeners fixed it and fixed it good. Doom Generation Podcast. Tim Burton finds a way to make his girlfriend staple her body parts together in a sexy way. And then in brackets, as is clearly his fetish based on past experience. That's Movies That Doomed Us is their podcast. And yeah.
His girlfriend. Is Tim Burton going out with Monica Bellucci?
Yes.
Ah, we're going to go Tim Burton.
Yeah, well, Helen Bonononononothem Carter before that. Like the man has
I love
got
her
skills.
too. She's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, that was his ex-wife. So he's got a long list of hot women. I imagine in 10 years he'll probably be dating Jenna Ortega. He strikes me as that sort of guy.
That's wrong. That's wrong on so many levels.
It is. Mike the Movie Misfit. The Ghost with the Most is back with far too many subplots. I agree.
Yep.
And that's Mike. He's a horror movie account on TikTok and Instagram. Nerdy Dad 42. That's right. It's Batman. And they're a mixed fandom account. Rowan J. Aardvark, who's the host of the Aardvark and Magic Moshi Do Red Dwarf. It's showtime. Again. Again, perfect. And finally, my personal favorite. This comes from Tragic Ra, who's an account on TikTok and Instagram. Really, really cool account. She went with Justice for Bob.
Yeah, I don't get it. Don't get it, man. He's not that relevant.
Where is your heart, man? Bob is like this. Bob, like, how did you not feel for him when he died?
His character much. I just didn't care. I just didn't care enough for his character, to be honest with you.
They don't stop coming and they don't stop coming and they don't stop coming.
There's a lot going on in this movie.
Yeah, let's do some facts. Winona Ryder considered and pitched multiple times the end game to be Beetlejuice and Lydia getting together. Now, Tim Burton batted it back, as did producers, but they gave them cake toppers as a gift when they finished filming. So they both got, the cake topper of Lydia and Beetlejuice? Winona Ryder and Michael Keaton both got one at the end of filming because they both said the perfect end game here is for Lydia to take the place of Astrid and Lydia be with Beetlejuice.
I would have liked it. I thought that's where they were going, and I was happy with it.
Yeah, I was as well. Michael Keaton and Tim Burton opted to keep the character as politically incorrect as he was in the original film. Tim Burton, as I said earlier, said it was a character trait that was based on when he's from. Political correctness would not have happened when he lives in the afterlife. Lydia hosts a paranormal investigation show called Ghost House, which is the perfect name because that's what the producers wanted to call it. Well, they wanted to call it House Ghost in 1988, the original. So that's where that come from.
I thought they wanted to call it Scared Sheetless.
Scared Sheetless, then it was House Ghost, and then it became Beetlejuice.
Yes.
But that's where that come from. Tim Burton said Michael Keaton did not rehearse a single second before he come on set. He just rocked up, went into makeup, turned up, went, "What am I doing?"
That's cool.
Yeah. One of the exhibits that Delia's doing at her show is incredible. And I spotted it and it didn't dawn on me. So there is a video of her surrounded by crows, which is a nod to Moria in Schitt's Creek, where she made The Crows Have Eyes 3, The Crowaning. And anyone who's not seen Schitt's Creek, go and watch it. You're missing out.
Yeah, and there was a slight difference in her character in this movie based on her character Myra from Schitt's Creek, and it was so hard not to be able to separate the two because she has that. If you go back and watch Beetlejuice 1 and then watch Beetlejuice 2 and then watch Schitt's Creek in between the two of them, you will see the natural transition that she plays in Beetlejuice 2 after doing Myra.
So what you're saying is that Schitt's Creek is part of this timeline and you watch Beetlejuice, the entire 6 seasons of Schitt's Creek, then Beetlejuice 2, and it all runs in order.
I think it probably could, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely could. The Maitlands originally had a cameo at the end of this movie. It was written, it was agreed. They spoke to Gina Davis and mine's gone blank. Who's the other guy? Alec Baldwin. It was going to happen. But Tim Burton pulled it before they signed contracts because he said he didn't want to use de-aging technology to make them look younger. And without doing that, it wouldn't work. So he just pulled the idea and instead of trying to explain it, just threw it away in a one-liner. Oh, yeah, we found a loophole they passed over.
Yeah, I was happy with that.
Yeah, I was as well. Monica Bellucci's body is pierced together in a very similar way to Sally in A Nightmare Before Christmas. The only difference is in this she uses staples, and A Nightmare Before Christmas it's stitched together, but the stitch marks are in the same places.
Yeah, just heavily CGI'd.
Yes. Also in A Nightmare Before Christmas, Catherine O'Hara voiced Sally.
I knew that. Why was I going to pretend like I didn't know that? I did know
that. One of the newspapers, Beetlejuice is quite often reading newspapers. One of the articles he's reading is a headline about 2 ghosts whose death were incorrectly assigned as suicide. So when we get the flashback of Beetlejuice, he is one of them. He shouldn't be working for the Afterlife Civil Service because he didn't kill himself. That's how you end up a civil servant. And also Astrid's dad didn't kill himself either. He was eaten by piranhas. So those are the 2 who are working for the civil service who are there incorrectly. They should have been allowed to cross over. Beetlejuice's exploding body is a direct reference from the animated series. That was how Beetlejuice disappeared at the end of every episode.
Right.
When she said Beetlejuice.
In the animated series.
Well, in the animated series, Lydia would go, Beetlejuice, 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 and it'd expand and pop, and then he'd be gone. And then she'd call him next week when she had another problem for him to solve. The final bit that we've not talked about, and I'm glad we didn't because we're going to talk about it now. The baby crawling on the ceiling is a direct homage to Train Spotting from 1996, which is one of Tim Burton's favourite movies. Can we talk about Beetlejuice Baby? I'm not on board for Beetlejuice Baby. I don't know why it was there. It's stupid.
No, it's ridiculous, really ridiculous. And that's one thing about this movie that I didn't like in particular as well is the dream sequence segments that are fluttered in throughout. The ending of this movie, the whole Astrid getting married and the Beetlejuice baby coming out at the end, and then her waking up in bed next to Beetlejuice. And there's a few smatterings throughout where they do this dream sequence thing, and it just doesn't work for me. It feels very disconnected from what we saw in the original movie. I don't know why that creative choice was made. I didn't
I,
like it at all.
I, we know why it was made. They made a baby Beetlejuice because Baby Groot and Baby Yoda sell a shitload of merchandise.
Yeah, probably. But again, in terms of respecting your movie and respecting the legacy of the character, these segments throughout this film just they work for me at all. And yeah, you're right. It's probably just a marketing ploy for NECA to sell more toys, but I just didn't like it. I didn't get it. It was just
No,
stupid.
I did. So what you're telling me is my movie that comes out in December, I need to cut Baby Scott from that movie.
Please do. If you have any idea of doing something as stupid and ridiculous as that, it's not welcome within the world.
Okay, no, that's fine. Do you want to round this up first, or should I do it?
I'll go first. I'm going to keep this one short and sweet because I don't
Right.
feel like there's much more that. I
Before
feel
you
like you're going to put
start,
a timer on me now.
no. The race is on. If you've not started already with your masturbation, now's the time to beat Mark. On your marks, get set, go.
Go. Yeah, no,
Go
I
on,
don't
mind
feel
if
like there's a
anyone
lot
is.
more. I don't feel like there's much more that I can say that I already have said. This movie doesn't necessarily tint my appreciation of the first movie, and given the weight that we had to spend wanting a Beetlejuice sequel, in all honesty, I just felt this was too little, too late. It didn't live up to the legacy of the first movie. It didn't come anywhere near close in terms of what I wanted from a sequel for the iconic original. Um, the casting's great. It's good to see where everybody is so many years later. There's a lot here in terms of story and plot developments and character interactions that translates very, very well on screen. I wasn't ever in a state of I'm disappointed by this or oh, I wish this would hurry up and move on. Everything that was written played out very, very well. It was just a final act where everything just feels rushed and thrown together in order to wrap things up nicely in a pretty little bow that I didn't appreciate. I could have taken a 2 hour runtime of this with the extra added time that I feel like the final act needed. Um, my biggest gripe is the song choicing. Danny Elfman's score, fantastic throughout, but it's the song choices in terms of key moments that we're trying to replicate what was achieved in that first movie with the banana song.
Yeah.
There are so many other song choices that I could think of off the top of my head instantly that would have been a million times better than what they did produce in this movie. And for me, knowing how iconic that first song is in that first movie, to then come up with such a disappointing contribution this time around, it just felt like there was so little care put into it. And I don't know whether these are songs that are relevant to Tim Burton and have meaning to him and the rest of the cast, which is why they chose them. I'd never heard of any of the songs that they used here, and it just didn't make any sense to me for them to be so pivotal to certain scenes. So that was a really big letdown for me. I know it's hard to try and replicate the iconicness of that first Banana Boat song that they used, the Deo song. You will never be able to get lightning in a bottle like you did that first time
No.
around. But even the attempt to do so was so underwhelming that I couldn't help but be disappointed by it whenever they tried to do musical cues like that. Soul Train, the whole hey
Yeah.
Soul Train. It's like that's such an easy thing to go down. That's such an easy grab, and especially the song at the end in the wedding. That was just like, why even bother with this scene? Um, the whole dubbing of Beetlejuice when he's doing the overcasting of his backstory, and then again with the Mexican thing at the end. It's a big gripe for me. It really disappointed me that they'd done that. If they really wanted to do that, they should have made Michael Keaton memorize those lines in French
Yeah,
and then use him as an actor to do it. He's an actor. Sure, it was for a 30-second dialogue scene. I'm sure he could have learned that himself in French to present it in a more authentic way. But it
yeah,
was clearly a different actor speaking those parts, and it felt very disconnected and massively pulled me out of every single scene that they did it. Overall, I know I've bitched a lot about this movie throughout this episode, but I would be lying to you if I said I didn't enjoy my experience with it. It was a good time. I enjoyed it. It was nice to see where these characters are so many years later. But when you're comparing it to the original, this is nowhere near on the same level of the original Beetlejuice. It's going to be a movie that I'll never probably choose to watch again. If it pops up on Netflix in the next couple of years, I might revisit it. I watch Beetlejuice at least once a year. I'll probably never watch this again, unless it randomly stumbles along my path. It's not a sequel where I'll watch the first one and immediately want to be like, oh, I need to watch Beetlejuice 2 now. You know, I'll still probably spend the rest of my life living in a world where there's only Beetlejuice 1, I think.
yeah. That's fair.
So yeah, that's all I've got to say, really. I think I'm going to round this out at a 3 out of 5. It was a nice experience, and I think it enlightened me on some of the lingering questions I had from the first movie. But overall, as a movie itself, it's just not anywhere near the quality I expected it to be.
Okay. I enjoyed this. I'm not going to say I didn't. I had a lot of fun with this. I loved like the opening segment where you've got lots of stuff happening. And it's like slow moving camera, and then like as it comes up to Lydia, it's like dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. I was like, yes, I am here. I am in. Like that's what got me. It was the Danny Elfman score at the beginning that really dragged me in. And I was on board. Like I had issues that I've spoken about in this episode, and I will watch this again. Like my younger kids have only just been old enough to watch Beetlejuice. So when this goes to streaming, we will definitely watch Beetlejuice 1 and Beetlejuice 2. And if they like it, this will probably become an annual watch for me. It's not even, you can't put this next to the original. It's not even a conversation to be had.
No.
But it does, like you say, it answers some questions I had. Like one of the things we said when we reviewed Beetlejuice is like, I want more of the afterlife. I want to know what happens when you've been a ghost for so long. Do you get to cross over? I want to know what happens to all these people in the waiting room. Like all of those questions were answered. And yeah, I think they could have done a better job, but it's not a bad movie. And it kind of gave me the nostalgia pop I needed from it to go, yeah, okay, that's it now. They need to stop now. I don't want a Beetlejuice 3. I do not want Beetlejuice in a couple of years. I think this is enough. I don't think
we'll get it either.
I hope not. I'm kind of where you are. I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5. It's not bad, but it's not great. It's serviceable.
I just think, given the time they had in between the first movie, I was expecting so much more. Like, this has been an idea floating around in Tim Burton's head for the past 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
So, like, when it got to it, I thought there would be so much more to it than what we were given.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Don't forget to let us know in the comments on Spotify what you think. And if you're watching this on YouTube, also let us know in the comments there. We're going to be back next week. Not going to tell you what we're going to review because we don't know, but it'll be something. Have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll catch you all next time. See you all later.
Guys. See you next week.
Topics flipping every week. Conversations make you.
That's not our outro at all.
You want to die tonight?
Jokes you tell sets the scene. I hang on every word lost in the screen. Your passion for fear is contagious enough. You make me believe in Mark's overblown roundups. You run podcasts or a movie review, unveiling facts and playing games too. Your words paint pictures of darkness and dread, leaving me grinning long after I fled. But you run podcasts. You run podcasts or a movie review, unveiling facts and playing games too. Your words paint pictures of darkness and dread, leaving me grinning long